all set?
You all set, Patrick? Okay. Can I have your attention, please? I'd like to call the meeting to order, and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board for June 5th, 2017. Thank you. The first matter on the agenda tonight is for a site plan review at 530 Stevens Street, known as Lowell Catholic High School. The applicant is proposing to construct a 25,000 square foot academic building on the existing parking lot behind the Lowell Catholic High School. The property is in the traditional two-family zoning district. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening, Chairman Lenahan, members of the board. For the record, my name is Attorney Stephen Geary. I represent Lowell Catholic in their petition tonight for site plan approval for a parcel located at 530 Stevens Street in Lowell. As most of you know, this is a 2.7 acre parcel of land that consists of the legacy school that's been there, as well as St. Margaret's. It's been added to that campus and defined by a common fence area around that. So over the last few years, the need for space for Catholic education has increased dramatically with the closure of certain schools. The Archdiocese approached Lowell Catholic a few years ago and asked if they'd be willing to take on a project like this to combine everything. And Lowell Catholic agreed to do that, and it's been tremendously successful. They have had enrollment skyrocket, and in the process of doing that, their educational plans, their educational achievements have increased, their athletic achievements have increased, and their cultural achievements have increased. And they've provided a solid Catholic education for so many families, for so many generations. And perhaps some of you members who may have lived in that area know people that did. It has an excellent reputation. This school is located in the Highlands neighborhood of the city of Lowell. It's been there for a very long time, and most of the neighbors have come there now well after the school. And it's important to note that this property and the folks that have run it for the last, since its inception, have been very good neighbors to those folks in the Highlands area, as the Highlands neighbors have been very good to them. The proposal is for a 25,000 square foot building, one-story building here that is going to house additional classrooms, additional learning centers, and additional technical areas that are desperately needed with the increased enrollment. That is all due to this school's success. We came before this board at a preliminary hearing a few weeks ago, and we got with preliminary plans, and we got some very good feedback from this board. A lot of that feedback, and if not that feedback and some more, have been specifically dealt with in what you have before you tonight. This plan is important in so many ways, and it's really on a tight time schedule. And the reason for that is would be seeking to, if this board is willing to do that, to get approvals tonight subject to reasonable conditions and any engineering conditions, because the goal and the hope is to have a foundation in and paved around it by August, so when the children return to school in the fall, it's a seamless continuation of the school year without any big problems in digging, and then they'd go from the main frame up. So in anticipation of that request tonight, the team that's been working on this, the architects, the engineers, the project manager, and the traffic engineers, and everybody involved in this has worked very hard to address all the concerns and all the good comments that this board made at our preliminary hearing. They've addressed those and incorporated those concerns into the plan you have now. I do anticipate there'll be some questions, but I also anticipate you're going to have some solid answers from the folks who are dealing with the technical end of this project. This, I want to introduce a member, Steve Knight, who is in charge of the buildings and grounds at Lowell Catholic, to tell you a little bit more specifically about the school, and then I'll speak to you just a little bit more before we introduce the engineer. So he'll tell you a little bit more specifically about the character of the school. If I could introduce him, Mr. Knight.
My name is Steve Knight. I'm the Director of Buildings and Grounds at Lowell Catholic, and I just wanted to say a few words on behalf of Mrs. DeMarco, the head of school. She's at our first ever Lowell Catholic 8th grade graduation, so you know, it's It's a big deal for her to be there, and it's important for her to be there. We're happy to say that 60% of the kids graduating the 8th grade are going to be attending the high school next year. We've already had 2 grades fully closed with a waiting list, and we've just opened up an additional 6th grade class, and this is before the summer run. So, the elementary school is doing really well, and when Mrs. DeMarco was here at the pre-application hearing, I'm sure that you saw the passion that she had for the school and for this project. And I want to also say that the students hold that same passion. And, we had 89 students graduate this year. All of them are either going on to college or to the armed forces. They're an amazing group of kids. These kids got over $16 million in scholarships, and they completed more than 15,000 hours of community service, a lot of it in the city and some of it right in the neighborhood, doing spring cleanups for the residents. We've really, tried to be good neighbors, and we really, truly look forward to continuing. We've opened our auditorium doors for the Highlands Neighborhood Group to have their meetings there, and we hope that while they're there, they'll be able to see firsthand our faculty, our staff, and some of the kids roaming around after school, and really get to know and see, what the school's all about. And I think that this is a great project, and I think it'd be nothing but positive, and I thank you for, taking the time to listen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and I could just add one thing to that. The project team has also reached out several months ago to all of the neighbors in all of that neighborhood on 3 different occasions for their input. We didn't really have any, so we took that as a good sign, but we're here to address any issues that the neighbors might have as concerns. As Mr. Knight told you, they've opened up the school itself to the neighborhood meetings, so they can host the meetings there. Also, over the years, it's impossible to have a building and a institution that size without having to address certain issues. And I can tell you that from my discussions with Mary Ellen and with Steve, that the few issues that do come up, they address them. They have a system where they address these issues with the neighbors, and they deal with them right away. They've been good neighbors, as they said, and they want to continue to be good neighbors. They have a vested interest in that, as do their students and their community, who are also neighbors of the Highlands or prior neighbors in the Highland neighborhood. So they named this project, or this school, Lowell Catholic. It was important for them to do that because the city of Lowell is a very important piece in this project. They're proud of the city of Lowell. They're proud to be from the city of Lowell, and it's the only Catholic school right now in the city of Lowell, competing with schools that we commonly know: Central Catholic, St. John's Prep, Bishop Girton, Austin Prep, and all schools like that, that our students or our children, if they want a Catholic education in high school, would have to otherwise go out of the city, which they did for many, many years. So there's a need for this project. There's a history of being very good neighbors and being organized and responsible and addressing all the issues, and that will continue with that. So for the specifics, I'd like to introduce to you right now Brian Melissi, who's the engineer, and I think that he can speak to you about some technical issues regarding the site plan that's on the easel to my left. Brian?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Brian Melissi with Whitman and Bingham Associates. We are the project civil engineer. So we have a couple of boards I'd like to just point out. The one on the right is a kind of a colored-up version of the proposal. It's overlain on an aerial photo of the area. Just briefly to orient you, along the bottom of the board is Stevens Street. Coming up the left-hand side is Parker Road. At the very top of the board, where the road kind of takes a U, is Wilder Street, and Galligan Road is located on the far right. And that's the 4 major streets that kind of bound our site. To the very left-hand lower corner is the Lowell Catholic Elementary School, formerly known as St. Margaret's, from what I understand. And you'll see from the aerial photo the 3 existing buildings to the front of the site: the Keith Hall, or the Keith Gym, the McNamara, and the Legacy Hall. The proposed building is, as you heard, is a 25,000 square foot building. It's located on the plan in that orange block. It's a single-story building to house classroom space, and ancillary space that the architect can kind of touch on. The building itself is being placed on, say, the north easterly portion of the site where there is currently a parking lot. And the parking that is displaced because of the construction of the building is shown to the right along Galligan Road in that grayed-out area there. We have Tim Thompson here from Pier, who's going to talk about the traffic part, but very briefly, the site circulation is such that the new parking has angled parking. So if someone looking for a parking spot would kind of go to the outside of that parking area and circle out back around, kind of in a one-way scenario. Currently, the site has two means of egress off of Stevens Street, and it has one means of egress off of Wilder Road in the back of the site. You may remember at our pre-application hearing and the original proposal, we called for two means of egress off of Wilder Road. The two means of egress off of Stevens Street were going to remain, and we added a egress off of onto Galligan Road. And I believe it was this board at that pre-application hearing had mentioned the fact that we should look at and maybe study eliminating one of those egresses off of Stevens Street, and so which we have. So the proposal that was submitted fairly soon after that pre-application hearing takes the southerly-most egress off of Stevens Street and eliminates the access. Again, Tim will talk about site circulation and whatnot, but what it allowed us to do is kind of open up a kind of a courtyard area or a little bit more green space where you see that the green space in that red block there. I think we said at the pre-application hearing that we were trying to save a spot for some donator brick area or something like that for some fundraising ideas. But we did take some of those comments into account and get rid of one of those means of egress. The site is serviced by municipal water. It's serviced by municipal sewer. There is an extensive stormwater drainage system currently on the site. One of the project team members here can talk about, but on the southeasterly portion of the site where the parking lot is going, is a fly ash dump. And currently there is a cap over that. The cap consists of, it's a few feet deep, but it's impervious area, such that when it does rain onto the football field, what currently is the football field, we don't want that runoff leaching through some of that fly ash and then getting into the groundwater. And so the idea there is to catch and collect that water before it reaches the groundwater and puts it into the municipal system. Our stormwater system takes into account some of that. We try to utilize a lot of the existing infrastructure that's already on the site. But if you looked at the plans, or if you do look at the plans, you'll find that we have a large detention system underneath our proposed parking lot. They're becoming a lot more prevalent now in industrial, commercial, and retail development. Nobody wants open detention basins anymore. Number one, it's a site constraint. Number two, with the old Zika virus thing coming into play a couple years ago, nobody wanted standing water kind of on their sites. So what we do is we collect the stormwater from the new building, from the new parking area. We treat it through deep sump catch basins, hoods on those outlets, run them through water quality units, and then run them through that detention system. It's made of high-profile pipe, 48-inch pipe. It's put under the pavement. It's fairly easy to maintain. But that's part of our stormwater system. I can talk drainage all day long. I know you guys would rather probably talk about something else, but if there's any questions later on about the drainage system, I can certainly address those. Trying to see what else we have here. As part of the site plan, one of the original proposals along the northerly property line, which would be to the Parker Street side, there was a means of egress out of the building and a sidewalk that kind of crept along that northerly part of the property. That since has been eliminated from the plan. It was eliminated on the plan when we had our pre-application hearing. So it's what the architects refer to as kind of a passive side of the building. There's really no reason for students or faculty or anybody to be over there. So what we've done is we've built up an earthen berm and heavily landscaped that area. Obviously, there's going to be some maintenance activities that go on over there, some mowing of the lawns and trimming of the trees. Excuse me. And what we've also tried to do, incorporated in the plan, was an earthen berm and a landscape berm along the northerly edge of Galligan Road to try to eliminate any of the headlight wash that may come from cars parking over there, to try to be a good neighbor to some of those abutters on Galligan Road. And I know I was probably very brief and probably washed over a couple of issues, but that's my presentation for now, and again, we'll be here to answer any questions. What I'd like to do now is introduce Tim Thompson of Pear Corporation, who's the project team traffic engineer, to kind of talk about a little bit of the site circulation and what they did. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As Brian mentioned, my name is Tim Thompson. I'm a traffic engineer with PAR Corporation. We did the traffic study for the school, and I'm just going to discuss some of the proposed traffic circulation plans that we have. Just to touch on the existing traffic circulation pattern on the site, there are 2 driveways off of Stevens Street that currently serve the site. The northerly driveway, which is to the left on the figure shown, currently is an entrance-only driveway. All vehicles that enter the site enter via that driveway. Any parent pickup or drop-off that occurs to the east side of the existing buildings, and then all the vehicles that exit the site exit via the southerly driveway onto Stevens Street. There is an existing driveway on Wilder. However, that driveway is gated and is not used currently for during pickup and drop-off procedures. The proposed traffic circulation on the site, as Brian mentioned, the most notably includes the closure of the southern driveway on Stevens Street, the addition of a driveway on Galligan Road, and then 2 driveways on Wilder Street. And what the proposed circulation plan for the site will include for parent and drop-off procedures will be having parents enter via the northern driveway on Stevens Street, drop off in the same location they do today at the rear of the buildings, and then continue to the driveway on Galligan Street, where they can either make a left or a right and disperse from the site as needed. Any student traffic or other traffic that's entering the site can enter via any of the driveways, including the driveways on Wilder Street and the driveway on Stevens Street, and also exit via those driveways as well. So actually, the recommendation, as Brian mentioned, to close the southern driveway on Stevens Street was initially brought to us when we were first in front of this board as an attempt to reduce some of the impact to Stevens Street, which is a very busy roadway. So we took that advice, and we really feel like distributing traffic via the 2 site exits on Galligan Road and the site exit on Wilder Street will really help distribute some of the traffic from the site and help alleviate some of the congestion issues on Stevens Street. So we're going to be looking at, so that'll help improve some of the traffic safety issues coming from the site onto Stevens Street, and also reduce the overall traffic that's being generated onto Stevens Street. I also just want to point out, too, that the traffic that's generated by the school is really concentrated to those arrival and dismissal times. So in the morning, really about a 45-minute window where parents and students are coming to the site. In the morning, it does coincide with the typical morning peak. However, it's a little bit more distributed as parents kind of gradually drop off students as opposed to having everybody enter at once. And then the afternoon peak, that peak actually occurs before the typical commuter peak. So there's overall less of an impact than a typical trip generator, if you will. So we really feel like the modification to the traffic circulation plan on the site does account for reducing some of the impacts to Stevens Street and also improving safety for driveways coming to and leaving the site. I'm welcome to address any questions you have at the end of our presentation, but right now I'd like to hand it over to Jerry Foley.
I'm not Jerry, but just to quickly, there are some issues that were brought up in a memorandum from the Department of Planning and Development that we're happy to address specifically, and I think Mr. Foley will do that. That's the intention for that, if that's how you want to proceed. at this point, Mr. Chairman.
That's fine, whichever way
Okay,
you want
so
to
we
go.
just have, there's a handful of issues that were brought up in that and questions, and I think Mr. Foley can address those one by one.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jerry Foley. I'm the project manager for Lowell Catholic. So we received the comments back from the traffic analysis that we prepared as part of our application process in compliance with the zoning bylaw that was adopted, I think, last February 2016, relative to doing an analysis of the sidewalks in proximity to the school. And we've seen their comments. We got those late last week. And they do raise some cause for concern, and so I just wanted to kind of bring back our concerns relative to those comments. The concerns fall into two different categories. There's a financial concern associated with the construction of the sidewalk, as they recommended the construction of a sidewalk on the north side of Galligan Road. And they also requested sidewalk improvements for about 150 feet along Stevens Street, from the point where we'll be eliminating the current egress down to the corner of Galligan. So first, I think the financial ones to us are more important for a couple of pragmatic reasons. Lowell Catholic's a 501c3 organization. Although the bylaw refers to private schools, all private schools, there's a difference from one private school to another. The Lowell Catholic receives no public funds whatsoever. So all the money that we get to work with either has to be on a loan basis, through a bond, or through a capital campaign program. So the school's been working diligently for at least 2.5 to 3 years on their campaign program. They managed to get the campaign program to a point where there were enough funds pledged to go to lending agencies to get this project to go forward. Constructing sidewalks on public property was never part of the plan that Lowell Catholic had. So the lending agencies told us in advance that any money that comes forward for the bond issue has to be spent on our property. So we don't have the ability to use any funds coming from the bond to be used on public property, with the exception of the necessary curb cuts required to get the egress in and out of the property. So that's one issue. The other thing is, on the capital campaign side, raising money is a difficult thing, as everyone knows. I mean, we've got contribution amounts from $25 to $250,000 to get this building built. However, all of the money is earmarked. When people donate money, they say, I want my contribution to go towards the media center. I want my contribution to go towards the art display. I want my contribution to go to the lab. I want my contribution to go to the classrooms. So all that stuff is earmarked. 100% of it is earmarked. So when you look at all the money that we look at the money that we're promised, and we look at the money that we're trying to finance, there's no money in there for sidewalks on public property. So that's an issue for us. We're not saying, that we're not willing to talk about it, obviously, because it's a bylaw that we need to get to some consideration to. Secondly, there are some technical issues associated with the sidewalks. And I'm just curious, I know that it sounds like a good idea to put a sidewalk on Galligan Road, but I'm not sure you can envision what that will look like. And if I could just give you a quick handout. Photograph of Galligan Road.
Yep, I'm familiar. Yep.
So what I've given you is a photograph of Galligan Road taken from Stevens Street, looking down towards Wilder. And as you can see, although you can't probably count them, there are 18 mature trees along the fence line on City of Lowell property, which is the location of the proposed sidewalk. And those will all have to come down in order to put a sidewalk in there. So I just want everybody to understand that putting a sidewalk in there has some implications associated with it. Secondly, the city engineering department has some policies in place relative to handling runoff for added impervious area. There are no provisions for us to mitigate the additional runoff associated by that additional sidewalk being put in. So rainfall will come, it's going to hit the sidewalk. Right now it hits grass, and we're going to generate an increase in runoff for every design storm that you can think of, and that will have to be, they want, by their regulations, they want that to be mitigated before it goes into the city system. We have no way to mitigate that. We can mitigate our runoff on site with our detention basin, but we can't mitigate, so we'd need to overcome that technical difficulty to go forward. And lastly, you know, I think that something can be done on Stevens Street, but I think the solution that's put in there is a bit troublesome, just because it's not a good standard engineering practice as to how to repair that sidewalk. You know, the condition that's referenced in the engineer's letter is a result of probably layer after layer of pavement that's been put in since the you know, early 60s. So now what's happening is just a small reveal left. I mean, we could raise it up and raise the sidewalk, but it would just, when the city finally gets around to doing Stevens Street right, and it's pretty much, you know, the entire length of Stevens Street that needs to be looked at, then they just end up removing that section that we did. So we feel as though we could work with the city on conforming to the best that we can, or assisting them with improving circulation for pedestrians, if the board also thinks that this is a necessary thing to do. But I have to be right up front with you and let you know that, first of all, it's a financial challenge, and if the board would like us to go forward and pursue this as a condition, we're going to need some time to raise the money to get that done. I'm not sure if it was addressed or not. I'm sorry if I missed it. At the pre-application meeting, there was a request to slide the building forward towards, to look into it anyway, sliding the building forward towards the Legacy Hall and creating a grass courtyard area. And I think, Mr. Boyle, you suggested that. We did look at that. We called the fire department, and the fire department is against it. We talked to the Deputy Crowley, I think it is, and he said, no, he wants to be able to get a vehicle in between those buildings to fight a fire. It gives them access to the gymnasium, to the new building, to Legacy, and also to McNamara. So he recommended strongly that we do not do that. So that's why that parking lot's still in the middle back there. Beyond that, I know that the comments just came out recently from the engineering office, and I won't be addressing those, but Mr. Melisi can address those if you want to. That's all I have. Thank you.
And the only thing I could add with that, with relation to the issue with the sidewalk at the preliminary hearing, my memory is we were asked to add trees to a certain part of the parcel, which they've done. It would seem to me inconsistent to then take down 18 mature trees that provide a canopy in that area on that street for a sidewalk that is likely not even necessary. I realize it's part of a new bylaw, but in this particular site, it doesn't appear that it would be necessary, at least from the school's point of view. So unless, if you have any specific questions to any of our professionals or any of our team members that are here tonight, we're happy to answer all of those questions.
Well, I'll have a question. For the sidewalk improvements, that's what we're talking about, right? Is that the new section code we're talking about,
Yes.
11.417?
Yes.
I don't think we have control over that.
As an educational, religious educational institution,
They have a right to, I mean, this, whatever they recommend gets attached to our site plan approval. We're not part of this board. We have no say what they say. But if we have, I believe that's the way it was presented. Pat, you have a copy of that with us? I know we've talked about it mid-path. But I think the purpose of this bringing up is they have to create this plan, and then the parties that get involved, when they put it on 11.417, they excluded us completely. So you have to satisfy them, not the planning board, for the sidewalk plan.
right, so we'd ask for any approvals subject to,
So you'd have to prove that their approval on this or not us. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I mean, so we can't tell them, in the arguments that you're saying to, well, let's eliminate one or two of these because we don't have the purview to do so. That's something you'd have to meet with this board and the people who drafted this and go with them. We can only accept this as part of the site plan. We can't add or delete to this plan that they've submitted to us. So we can't say, we'll give you 3 or 4 of these, we won't give you the 5th. We don't have control of that.
Okay, exactly what he would speak.
The sidewalk, the Lowell Catholic, the plan that was given to us by Lisa DeMayo, Nick, and Patrick Burns, which was dated 6/1, talks about the section 11.417, Lowell Catholic sidewalk improvements. So the improvement plans are what these people put together, and it's contingent upon you satisfying them, not us. We, as the planning board, were not, when this came up to vote, and they recommended to us, and it went before the city council adopted it, says this planning board has to accept these conditions as part of the site plan. So we can't add or delete to these.
So any approval could be subject to their.
Yeah, so you'd have to satisfy these people, not us, for this. So if we approve it with site plan approval, all these conditions stay in place. We cannot take any of these off. We don't have the authority. It was never given to us.
Right, and I don't believe that issue has been before this board yet, right? Has it?
Nope, this is the first time.
Yeah.
So when they brought it up, they said, they make, that's my understanding of it, 'cause, you know, comes before us for a recommendation, and then it goes to the council. So, but Jeff, if you want to be clear on that, fine. I mean, my understanding is that they create this and comes before us, but we don't have a say in what happens on this. This is an independent board who puts these recommendations together. We can't add or delete to them, I don't believe.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, just so I'm clear, so,
You'd have to discuss this with them for any type of mitigation.
but can this board take action on site plan approval before that gets, so, okay, so,
We could take approval, the site plan approval, and these would all be in effect.
and then if something changes on that, we can come back for an amended
Nope. As
condition?
long as it meets them,
Okay,
that's fine. So what I'm just trying to say nicely is, you know, I don't think we can change some of these conditions. Patrick, are you,
Yeah, that's.
you
what
follow the way I do, or am I,
Yes,
if I am, I mean, if you're not sure, you can double check, but I know since this has been in effect, they said these people go, they do the sidewalk plan, they come before the planning board, you have to satisfy them. If the planning board has to approve this as part of the site plan, and we have no say in what happens here. I mean,
Right, that's correct. So the conditions that are adopted by the team, the traffic sidewalk team, is the
So I'm just
conditions
saying,
that are.
regardless of what we feel, and I understand what some of Jerry's concerns were with the parking in the back and the trees and all that stuff. I mean, so I don't know if you have to meet with them. I don't know. Okay? I mean, just to throw it out there, that's my understanding of 11.417, so we can't take away relief on these recommendations. I understand totally what you're saying. When I was reading this, I'm like, And I think this is the first time that it's come before us since the council adopted this new ordinance. So, I mean, if you're looking for conditional relief, then we have to attach this to it. That's my understanding of it. And if I'm wrong, then that's fine. I've been wrong before, but.
Okay, we were not aware of that.
Because I remember when it was written up and came before us, that was an explanation we got from the city, which is a whole independent board, whole independent review, and what they say, you have to satisfy them, not us. And at least that was the way the city presented it to us. So, but just on the sidewalk improvement plan, so.
Mr. Chairman, just to
Sure. Go.
further your interpretation there, in the memo that we received as well, it says, in conclusion, in accordance with section 11.417, the following shall be adopted as conditions of the site plan. So it's not may be adopted, or it shall be adopted. So, I mean, it makes it pretty clear.
So I'll just say, you know, you can always amend things with them, but we can't change that, unfortunately. So,
Okay, so we'll have to address that issue.
okay, sure, no problem. I just wanted to bring the attention the way I read it and, you know, throw that out there with, I mean, and I appreciate going through the checklist, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, okay.
So, do you have anything further to?
I don't know, unless you have any specific questions for any,
No, what I'll do at this time, I'm gonna turn it over to the public, and then if the board members have any questions as a result of any of what the applicant has to say, or any questions from the public, then I believe the planning board probably have some questions, but thank you very much, okay? So at this point in time, I'm gonna open up to the public, for anybody here at this point want to speak in favor of the project? Anybody want to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none at this time, anybody want to speak in opposition? Just come to the microphone, you have to state your name and address, please, for the record.
My name's William Malovich. I'm speaking on behalf of my mother who lives at 20 and owns property at 24 Wilder Avenue. It was the one street that was not mentioned that abuts the property line. Mentioned Stevens Street, Parker Street, Wilder Street, and Galligan Road. But there is a dead-end road that runs between Parker Street and the Lowell Catholic properties called Wilder Avenue. And there are some, significant concerns with that. One is the parking situation. Because currently there are a lot of cars when school's in full session parking on the side streets, blocking driveways, blocking areas of walkway. And even though that this new plan has all these parking spaces shown, my understanding is that the school charges for these spots. Well, people that don't want to pay the parking fees will park on the side streets so they get around it. So if you look at the streets, if you've ever driven around those streets, they're extremely narrow. There is no way two cars can go past each other on the road when there are cars parked alongside. That's specifically on Wilder Street and Galligan Road. And really, only one car can go back and forth on Wilder Avenue. The other issue and another big concern is the drainage of water. Before we get to that, there was a statement made that several notices have been sent out to all the neighbors and abutting people. That's incorrect. The first notice of any changes to that property were received when we were notified of this meeting to attend. So we did not see any letters, notifications of any changes or anything that was going to happen until this meeting. And that was confirmed with several of the neighbors. The concern with water drainage is they're saying that it's a state-of-the-art system. Well, I completely disagree because the properties on if you look at the image on the right side of Wilder Avenue as well as the house on the end on the left is constantly being flooding in the basement, flooding in the yards, damage being caused to it because of the runoff from the school system where the old St. Margaret School was. The water's running off down the driveway, down the lawn, straight through, as well as the gymnasium. Now, if you look at the drawings or the plans that were pulled or submitted to the city of Lowell, an infiltration system to take care of runoff was put in, is on the designs in the drawings. That's only in place on the right side of the building if you're looking at the front of the gymnasium. On the left side, it runs off, straight down to the ground on the gravel, and all that water runs down the property and onto Wilder Avenue. That causes, again, runoff, going into, causing damage in the yard and flooding. There are several structures, 24 Wilder Avenue, and then several garages down the right-hand side of Wilder Avenue that are seeing a lot of water damage because of this flooding. I do have some pictures of what the drainage looks like on the right side of the building versus the left side. Also, the rear of the gymnasium has an exit where, when it was initially put in, it was supposed to be an emergency exit only. It was only going to be used for that. Now it's being used for multiple exits. It's open all day long. The baseball team's back there practicing all the time. There's a batting cage set up back there, so it's extremely noisy and disruptive to the neighborhood. And if you go back there now, there's a bunch of pallets, wooden boxes or painted crates or things like that. So it's a storage debris. And also, with the students going in and out of there, there's a lot of trash being left back there as well as being transferred onto the property of 24 Wilder Avenue. Just let me take a look. And as far as the traffic with multiple exits onto Wilder Street, again, please go take a look at these streets because the streets are way too narrow, way too crowded to have two exits on Wilder Street as well as an exit onto Galligan Road. There's no real place for anybody to walk on Galligan Road. And I question the number of mature trees of 18 because there doesn't appear to be that many on the And I'm not sure which side of the Galligan Road you were referring to, whether it was the school side or the opposite side. The school side. So I don't think there are that many mature trees on that side as far as the sidewalk goes. But as far as being, an abutting neighbor to Lowell Catholic, there are a lot of concerns as to this new building because they pulled, supplied permits or filed plans for the gymnasium and didn't follow through with actually installing what was proposed on the drawing. So what makes, the neighborhood think that the same thing's gonna happen here? Also, if you look at the property line versus the gymnasium, what's the distance a building's supposed to be to a property line to a neighbor? Is it a standard, a set, I'm not
It all
sure.
depends on what, in this one here, it'd either be 10 or 15 feet, one or the other.
Okay, so,
What it has to be is a total of 25, some are 25, minimum 10 on one side, and so you could have 12 first side and a half, you can have 10 one or 15 on the other, so it's a minimum of 10 or 15, depending what you have on the other side.
okay, so the back of the school is extremely close to the property
So
line.
the backyard, rear back is different than the sides and different than the front.
So, again, just asking what it was, because it's extremely close there, and it doesn't seem like that's how close it was supposed to be initially, when the building was installed. I know a lot of these issues were brought up back originally and brought up multiple times. Some drainage work was done. They did put drainage ditches in the back of the building, but it's not enough to keep up with the drainage coming off the roof. Also, if you do look at the gymnasium, only half or a third has a slanted roof going into the drainage system. The rest of it's pretty much a flat roof where the water just runs off and runs straight down to the ground. So again, that's more water that runs off into the property. So before this building was put in, there were no issues in the neighborhood. After the building was put in, the city of Lowell put some pumps in basements in all the houses in those areas because of flooding and those type of issues. Don't know if that was coincidental or not, but a sump pump was installed in 20 Wilder Avenue after that was done. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Dawn McDonald, and I live next door to the Malaviches on 8 Wilder Avenue. Basically, what I just want to say is, years ago, when we first started this new construction at Lowell Catholic, like Billy said, none of us had any problems. And, oh, we're going to put in drainage and blah, 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 and they built up that parking lot behind Wilder Avenue where this orange square is right here, 4 feet. And they were supposed to have proper drainage, and they never did. And so for years, all of us on Wilder Avenue, there's like 4 or 5 of us houses, all of a sudden, our basements were filling up with 4 or 5 feet of water. We've lost important things that were important to us and family memorabilia or whatever, and nobody seemed to care. And the idea of doing this, and Brian was talking about, we're gonna have the state-of-the-art drainage or whatever, that's really beautiful words, but at the same time, it's horrible to live that way with your entire basement underwater all the time. Your backyard is literally your chain link fence, halfway up the chain link fence is full of water. And like Billy just said, that orange square seems really close to our property. I mean, it's just, I don't know, like, are they gonna build up some more? And is it, like, what is the process gonna be here as far as, are they gonna have to build up the pavement even higher now? Higher now to have this building put on here, so the drainage is gonna be even worse? I don't know. And the trees that you were talking about have now grown over into our property, so I'm kind of hoping that they can, manicure that, so that now that's not another thing that we're taking care of. I don't know, it's discouraging. And like you said, the parking, you do need to realize Wilder Avenue is probably a small part to this whole thing. You did talk about the major streets around it, but you start getting kids parking on our street, we can't even get out of our driveway. Never mind try and fit a car down when they're parked on both sides of our street. And a lot of the people that actually live on that street park on the street. So now you come home and you don't even have a parking space. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of issues around all this, but the drainage is my major concern personally, because it ruined all of our properties, and it never seemed to get remedied. And that's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Teresa Noel. I live on Benton Street, which wasn't even mentioned. We have kids parking on our street. We don't have a sidewalk. They park on my lawn. There's no more lawn at the edge of my home because they kill it with their wheels. They've even moved my trash barrels last winter so they could park. Are you taking up parking spots over there to build this new building? You're not taking parking spots in the schoolyard?
No, we were displacing the parking where the building's going, but we're adding parking to the fields.
Well, because this has got to stop with the kids parking in front of my home. I have VNA nurses come in to help my husband, and they can't even park in front of my home. It's getting ridiculous. They're taking over our city with this parking with this school. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, one more thing. I never got.
So, just go back to the microphone, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No problem.
I only got one letter. I never received anything else about this going on.
Okay. If you were a butter, you would have received the notice.
I'm right across the street from the school. I'm on Benton Street.
Well, if you're directly across, wouldn't you be on Stevens Street?
Benton, right across from Stevens.
I know what Bennington is, but...
Yeah, there's only
But is your
6.
front door on Stevens Street or Bennington Street?
I'm on Benton, and there's only 6 homes on that street, and we never got a letter. This is the first one I received for this meeting.
That's the same with us, too.
Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah.
We
Okay.
never received anything. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ann. I live at 527 Stevens Street. I have a couple of questions. One is, when is this construction proposed to start?
We'll ask them, because I don't know. You can ask me, ma'am, we'll ask them, don't worry. You can ask the board will ask them the questions, yep.
Okay, and then I'm also wondering, when I look at that map and I see the orange area, I thought there were houses in that area. I was wondering if anyone's going to be displaced.
I don't believe there are, but, I mean, where the big orange piece is now,
Yeah, I don't,
that's the parking lot. Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
So I've lived in my house, I don't know, about 17 years before the gym was built. And we came to the meeting back then for that. I was kind of shocked at the time how much animosity there was among the neighbors. And since the gym was put in place, I now understand why. They have doors to the gym that are small in comparison to the size of the building, and they open directly to my house, and they use a very loud horn during their games. I've called every single year about this. The first year, Mrs. DeMarco was very nice about it and tried to work with me for a solution. Every single year, it's been an issue, and I've had to call at least 10 times. Past year, they stopped returning my calls, and I called my councilman, and finally that helped. But every year, the interest in resolving it has declined. I'd also like to echo what my neighbors were saying about not getting any notices before this notice. So when I hear the gentleman saying that they've been excellent neighbors, it's a little hard to take. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, ma'am. Attorney Gary, can I just ask one question to satisfy her answer? If this site plan was approved, when would the construction start? That's the question. I think that's a basic question that she could answer.
August.
Okay. Ma'am, they'd like to start the construction in August if it was approved. I just want to answer that question before we forget. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, ma'am.
That's okay. I'm Norma Matthews. I live on Benton Street also.
Okay. What's your first name, I'm sorry?
Norma.
Okay, thank you.
One of the concerns I have is the one that was echoed earlier. Well, two, actually. One is the communication was nil. And that was unusual because I think I did get invites to have them help clean my property and things like that. So for me, I haven't had an issue with the school. I live 3 houses from the front door of the school. But I am concerned about the increase in the growth of the school and the impact of the amount of parking. What they're doing may manage it today, but it's still not being managed today when you see all the overflow into the streets. And I'm quite concerned because I have a lot of family members who are not able to walk any distance. So if they park on the street, it's not going to facilitate their being able to walk blocks. It's a very small street, so it's very convenient for them because it's right in front of the school. I guess I would want more assurance that the street parking isn't going to be an issue for us as it is growing, and that it's not going to hinder people who are older, have health issues, difficulty walking, knee replacements, pains, arthritis. And so I want to make sure that I can accommodate the people that I would like to have come to my home. And same thing on the street. There are a lot in the same condition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Kristen Oda. I know I look like I go to Lowell Catholic, but I actually own 763 Wilder. It's actually right in the corner there on the top right. I just wanted to second what my neighbors are saying about the parking situation. I'm really concerned about the traffic that's going to be coming onto Wilder Street. That street really is narrow. A lot of people do park on the street as is now. And we just moved in about a year and 2 months ago, and we had to widen our driveway so that we could get more parking space because people were parking right in front of our house, taking up a lot of space. And then I live right like on a bend, and so when I'm trying to back out of my driveway, if a lot of people are parked on that road, it's so dangerous, and I think that it's going to create a lot of craziness. Also, to the right of me is the Washington School, so I think it's an elementary school, and I think that that brings in a lot of other traffic as well, and I don't think that anyone's really kind of paying attention to that. There's some streets that are over there that are just one-ways during certain times, and I'm concerned that that's going to happen over here. I just don't know if this is a good idea. And also what my neighbors were saying about the trash, and then it can get loud at times, and I'm just concerned about that as well.
Thank you.
One more thing I forgot to say, now that they know when there's a lot of traffic when they get out of school, people know the route to come by Benton Street and go around and miss the lights. So we're getting a lot more traffic on our street because of it. And some of them are very speedy, and we have 20-mile-an-hour speed things, but they don't pay attention. They really boogie through there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ty Chom. I live at 79 Fairlawn Street. English is my third language, so forgive me if I say something wrong.
It's okay, sir. Just feel comfortable and tell us in your own words what you want us to hear.
Okay. From what I'm seeing, the orange block right there, that's the school, right? That you guys gonna construct in August. And you're saying that you want to get it done. The target date is in fall. So that's a quick date. And you're saying that you already talked with the community itself, the neighbor, right? But I don't think we have much idea what you're trying to bring forward us. We never have any information about it. And most of us only have like this notice here that's saying to come down here and listen to you guys trying to get this approved without us having an opinion on it. So I think it's really unfair from the community point of view. I'm kind of frustrated and disappointed with the communication between you and the neighbor, the surrounding neighbor. And thank you to City Hall for sending this note to us. I got it twice. I'm sorry for any of you who only got it once, but thank you for sending it twice. My street is way back, it's Fairlawn Street, 79 Fairlawn Street. So it's off of Galligan Road, so you go a little bit straight. My house is the third house afterward. And I got like almost a quarter acre of land, right? There's a house and there's a lot there. So this lot is just a lot for my kid to play around with. I bought the house last year. I experienced this year, there was flood up to my, almost my knee. And when I'm listening to my neighbor saying like, oh, they never had an issue before until Lowell Catholic built something over there and they have a flood issue. So now I know where it's coming from. So for you to build something right there without communicating to us about it too, or you're saying that you have a issue system with the Lowell Catholic to talk with the community, I don't think it's true. Just to get that point across first. I'm not here to be a nice guy, right? I'm here to be a neighbor, to be a dad for my kid, right? I bought that house because I believe that it's nice and quiet, it's the perfect neighborhood for my kid. Everybody's friendly, everybody get to know each other, we back each other up. But I don't see you guys stepping to our door and ask us questions about what our concern is. You have issue about sidewalk issue, rain issue, financial challenge, needed time, quote unquote. And you're asking for a target date are you asking to finish it in the fall and starting in August? That's injustice for us. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit frustrated, but I speak from my heart, what inside me, how I feel, and this is how I feel right now. So if you could look at me in the eye, look all of us in the eye and tell us truthfully, how are you going to tackle this drain issue? How are you going to tackle this financial issue? How are you going to tackle this sidewalk issue? Then yeah, I'll listen. I'm pretty sure we're all going to listen to it. But give us the courtesy first to come talk to us about it. Not just coming over here and telling to the planning board saying, we want to get you guys approval. That's wrong. And that's unfair. And I got a lot of pain, how I feel, and I'm pretty sure my neighborhoods feel the same way, that you guys treat us unequally. Unfair, the communication here. I don't want it to be the same thing as Lowell High choosing a location. Lowell High School choosing a location between downtown or College Stadium. We don't want to be like that. So the issue with the traffic, right? I got two kids. One's 4 years old, the other one's just almost turned 2, like he's a rebel, right? He run to the street. You know, the reason why we bought that house because, you know, there's not much car going back and forth. But I'm thinking about in the afternoon, kids flying by. They drive by, even though that's 20 miles an hour sign flashing, they don't care. They drive by. So imagine put this big block, this new construction building area right? Now you're gonna have more people driving by to the back way, because the front way, you're saying you're leveling the sidewalk, whatever, so Stevenson Street is all right. But now you're thinking about the side way and the back way where we all live, is Wilder, Gallagher. So now you're talking about this side where the kids gonna take a shortcut to go back and forth. So now you're interrupting the neighborhood itself. So that's a big issue, right? I don't wanna like come out the next day and saw my son getting hit by a car. And then this was like this 18 or something years old kid that's driving, right? Because there's a new block right here, this orange block saying, oh, we got to put it right here. And I'm not stepping up my part as a parent, as a father, to step up and say something about it. I don't want to have no regret. So I'm just saying it out, putting my heart and soul, my idea, whatever I need to say out right now, because I don't want any regret later on in the future for my kid, and especially for my neighbor. If they, right? For example, sometimes they can't hear, sometimes they can't see. They have some knee problem, leg problem, whatever it is, right? And they can't walk fast enough. But you have some college kids, some high school kids, and some other people just driving by, just try to avoid traffic, not just the people in high school, but the people who try to avoid traffic in general in that part. That's a big issue. That's a very big issue. So what I'm asking you, you're saying that you always talk about, you listen to the concern of the department. I'm sorry, I can't quote you on that. But I don't hear you saying the concern of the community, the neighbor. What is the concern of the community and neighbor? Do you have that in your paper right now? Can you tell me? Can you look at me in the eye and tell me?
Mr. Chairman, if you could address the board, I don't know
That's okay, we'll get to the question. You can ask us, we'll ask them, okay.
I'm sorry, I just don't know the
That's
process.
okay, I understand.
But, yeah, I'm outraged. I'm frustrated. And it's not just me, it's my neighbor. And there's a lot of people like that too, and they don't have time to come down here. You only see like maybe just 10%. So I'm gonna get the word out there, right? Because now we know what it is, right? We're gonna get together as a community, as a neighborhood. We're gonna get the word out there. The next meeting that you have, I'm pretty sure it's gonna fill up the whole room. And I will.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Yep.
But, yeah, everybody's entitled to come down. No-
Okay.
No problem.
And
We've been here before when they've been all the way down the hall, down the stairs, up through here, up down there, yeah.
And that's what we do as a community, as a neighbor. We get each other back. I'm part of the Highland Neighborhood Group too. I don't see you guys inviting us about it. I don't see you guys talking to us about it. So for me, I feel like you're lying to me. And if that's the case, how could I trust you? You're saying that you're gonna put a brand new drainage system, right? From the start, you're lying to me already. How could I trust you? I can't, I'm sorry.
Well,
But
the
I could,
question on the draining system
yep,
has to be approved by our city engineer.
okay,
So whatever they tell us on that, that person has the final
Okay.
say in the matter. And doesn't matter what I say about the drainage, matters what our city engineer says about that.
gotcha. But it does
Because
matter.
when we refer to our department heads, which give us all our recommendations, they're the departments that they have to submit all the plans to. So when the plans come to us, traffic department gets a copy.
Yep,
Engineering department gets a copy, police department gets a copy, fire department gets a copy, waste department gets a copy, and there's one of the water department, and then all of those departments, they make comments and send them back to us. That's why we have a stack of more paper here. So if they come for the drainage part, they have to satisfy the city, and they go out and they inspect it to make sure that, hopefully, it's working, and then they tell us if it's gonna work or it's not. So even if I went out there and I saw it draining, the city engineer said it's okay, and I said no, city engineer wins.
wow. So,
Because we've been told before, we have to go on our exports, and our personal opinion don't care, is what the law department has told us several times in the past.
okay, so,
So we have to rely on certain people, which would have to approve or deny the drainage plan, as you requested. Yeah.
so my biggest question is, right, who got the final saying, right? For us as a neighbor, we want to say something about it before it actually get approved, right? We don't know the process, the step on it. So tonight is basically, I get what you're saying, they have to go through another step, right, to get approved from that and then come back again?
Well, we have a lot of comments in here already from our city departments, some favorable towards them and some negative towards them, and we're gonna address them as the meeting continues.
Okay, so later on,
We have some new comments that I received when I walked in the door tonight.
okay,
At 6:15, cause I was stuck on traffic for the last 2 hours.
Wow.
And that was an update from our city engineer. And it has more comments about what their comments are on the drainage system.
okay. So do we have more saying later on, like, do we have more notification?
So basically, it doesn't come down to us as a popularity contest. We have to follow our site plan rules and regulations, and we also have to follow Chapter 40B, which is outlined by the Massachusetts state law. So we have a state law we follow, and then we have our site plan, and our site plan is incorporated by the rules and regulations going there under our zoning ordinance and site plan by our city council. They impose those conditions. So we have to make sure our conditions, that the concerns are raised to us by the neighbors, by our engineering people and our traffic people, which we have reports on. And once we get the comments to them, we try to ask them what things work, what don't work. So we've had meetings where no one showed up except for the applicant, and we still voted against it. Or we could show up, or we have 500 people against it, and we've approved it. I mean, so it doesn't come down to how many people speak. The question is, do they satisfy the issue under the site plan? Under the site plan, we have a set of rules and regulations that we have to look at.
Gotcha.
So basically, I know I still have a lot more questions, but I'm gonna get to them after I let the public speak, because we get all the comments, like I said earlier, and a lot of them are written for here. So once we hear your comments, and then the board members are all gonna ask certain questions, then I'll probably have a few more questions, and then we'll see if they can help satisfy some of the questions that we all have.
Gotcha.
And then, whether we vote on tonight or not, I don't know. We haven't got to that point yet.
Okay.
I mean, we've opened the hearing. If we didn't vote on tonight, we continued it, we could continue it. Or if we're satisfied with and there's no request for continuance for some reason, we could either vote in favor with several conditions, or we could, if we voted to deny it, we need very, very strong language to deny it. Because on a site plan, same as if you had a piece of property and you wanted to develop it. If you met all the conditions, we could not say no to you. On a site plan under the law tells us we cannot deny a site plan. We can only approve it with conditions.
Gotcha.
If it's a special permit, which we have now, which you need 4 out of 5 votes, that we can deny outright. So the site plan, we have to find very, very strong reasoning from the city departments that they have to satisfy. And say if they say, we can't meet this condition, we can put that condition on. Instead of just denying, we say, okay, we want this condition met. And then they decide whether they want to go forward and make that condition or not. So we're told legally on a site plan review, we don't have the right to deny it, even though we've done it in the past. But legally, the law department calls us up and tells us after. And we say, yeah, we know. But then they try to fix the project. So if we say no, we need good, strong reasons. For example, if our traffic engineer came out and said, we're totally adamant against this because we really think it's gonna hurt the pedestrians in this walkway or this thing here. The numbers, the total thing, we think is a pure violation of our code. Or if the engineer came out and said, they're violating code number X, Y, and Z, then we'd have a little more flexibility to shoot it down. Or, when they submitted their plans to us, if they didn't give us the right set of plans to meet the right criteria, if it's inadequate, and they didn't give all the department heads copies of these, we can shoot it down for insufficient, the way they drafted it, the way they came in before us. So a lot of it we have a lot more department stuff that comes in, so I know as an individual, everybody has their own private concerns, who lives in the neighborhood or anywhere else in the city, who may travel that way or whatever. But when it comes to us, we have to rely on the traffic here. So even like in other sites, we've gone up there ourselves. 10 years ago, Mr. Fichette sat there for days counting traffic, okay? Doesn't matter how many cars he counted. It only mattered how many the traffic engineer counted. So his count don't count.
Yeah.
Figure that out. And a lot of departments told us that. Doesn't matter what Jerry says. He has to go by the traffic engineer.
Wow.
I'm like, wow. So what if I lived across the street from there? And they said I would have to leave this table, get up and tell you the information, but if I personally know it from this chair, don't count.
Wow.
That's what that's what the city law department told us. So we're like, well, I don't digest that too well, to be honest with you. Being a lawyer, I feel a little different on some of that, to be honest with you. But so basically, when you have input, their input, listen to them. We're going to ask some more questions, and more questions will arise. And then we have some more comments that we received, like I said, late tonight we have a big question here on the drainage from the city engineer, who just sent us something at 6 o'clock, saying that they can't use the water on their property to run off into the other areas in the city. They can't do that anymore. They want to do that. We have a comment here telling us they can't do it. So we're going to address that shortly. So we just got that at 6 o'clock, as indicated. So it has a lot to do with just, your personal feelings, which are very strong, and I understand that. And we encourage people to come out and tell us this stuff. So hopefully, they can address the issues, and we can make it a safe project for everybody. So that's the main goal.
Thank you for sharing that with me.
You're welcome, sir. I appreciate you coming forward.
Just one thing.
Sure.
Please consider our feeling,
Oh,
our emotion, how we go through this.
I have notes for everybody who spoke, their names, their addresses, and what they had to say.
Awesome.
We consider it all.
I think the parking lot is a
And
big
we've all
issue.
been up there. I went to St. Margaret's. I know the school very, very, very well. I walked there every day, to and from. Me and my 4 brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So, but that doesn't, so we have to see what they can satisfy the department heads. That's why we're talking about this new sidewalk plan. They don't have to satisfy us, they have to satisfy somebody else now.
Gotcha.
And that, we have no say in the matter. So, there's a lot of intricate parts of it, to answer your question, yeah. So there's a lot we have to consider. But obviously, any input from the neighborhood is very important to us.
I think the parking is the big issue too. The people that's walking Wilder Street, as you know, is so thin right there, and people parking on both sides.
Right.
Just please take that into consideration with the flood.
Right.
That's a big issue for us. We don't want to come back and complaining.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know how, like, the way you present to us the process, how it works. I guess now we have a better understanding how it is. Thank you very much for that. And
No problem.
that's all I have to say.
Okay?
Thank
you, sir. I appreciate your input. Thank you very much. Anybody else want to speak at this point? Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, at this point in time, I'm going to turn over to the board members, see what questions they may have.
Mr. Chairman? we've
Sure,
got
Mr. Boyle?
Actually, Mr. Malich.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have to recuse myself.
Okay, so
because I
Mr. Malovich isn't going to vote, okay. So we have an alternate here, Ms.
But I also have to remind people that I said at the pre-application meeting, make sure you talk to the abutting neighbors. You didn't want this kind of action to come back here, and I didn't think you did your homework.
Okay, so Mr. Malovich will abstain from voting, and therefore we do have an alternate, Mr. Snetsky, and he'll be voting as then in his absence. So we'll turn it over, the board will turn, the chair will turn it over to Mr. Boyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, I've got some questions. First of all, where you are closing the curb cut on Stevens Street, can you go into some detail about what you're putting there? Is it just going to be like at the former St. Margaret's, where you have this driveway and then a gate across it that doesn't get opened, or what's the plan there?
Well, actually, we're going to remove the curb cut.
Remove the curb cut entirely?
Move the curb cut entirely, put some granite curbing back. One of the comments from the transportation engineer, I believe, was that sidewalk issue right in front. So we would replace the actual pavement there with a piece of sidewalk connecting the sidewalk. We would remove the pavement, and we would provide a little bit more series of sidewalks to help some of the on-site circulation. I know it's probably very, very tough to see, but in the yellow, kind of encirculating that green area there would be a series of interior walkways to provide some of the interior pedestrian way around. But the actual curb cut would be removed in its entirety, not just chained off.
No, in terms of landscaping and what's going on inside there?
Yep.
You have a plan for that?
We do. There's a landscape plan. Most of it considered the exterior or the perimeter of it, but most of the area in there will be loamed and seeded.
Loamed and seeded, okay. There's a couple of different ways you go there. It just occurs to me that could be your interior courtyard.
Correct, and it's kind of what I tried to say that in my presentation, that came up at the pre-application hearing, that it definitely opens up the area there, and that's kind of what we're referring to it as our interior courtyard, correct.
Okay. My next question is for Patrick. The recommendation for the one-way only or do not enter on Galligan or something from Nick. Now, what is the purpose of that? What's he going for there? Can you speak to that, or do I need to ask Nick?
I just think to reduce congestion going in and out, backing out from Galligan onto Stevens. I'm just thinking more of a streamlined flow of direction. Other than that, for specifics, I'm not sure.
I mean, is he worried about the traffic coming out of the parking lot, or is he worried about people turning in there from Stevens Street? What are we trying to avoid there?
I think both, because if there was a two-way entrance, there would be this kind of congestion in that small area, because the Galligan entrance isn't that far off from the Stevens Street, so I think overflow of congestion was his concern.
Okay. It also occurs to me that with the loss of one of those curb cuts onto Stevens Street, that now having Galligan go two-way just at the exit period would allow that to have a left turn and a right turn out lane onto Stevens from Galligan, as opposed to all of the cars left and right being in line behind each other. They could use that whole width, so that might be an advantage. But that's the type of thing that would need some kind of enforcement or management, which brings me to my next question. Do you have a traffic management plan involving staff is going to be at this point and this point and this point, waving people to go this way and not this way?
Yes, to answer your question, yes, we do. We currently do. We do work very hard to get as many of the cars off Stevens Street. The period in time that we're talking is a very small period of time. At drop-off, the drop-off is spread out over the course of 45 minutes or so, and there's not a real congestion area largely there. At our dismissal time, all the students are leaving at one time, and we do get them off Stevens Street. We have them loop around the parking lot, and we don't direct them on Stevens Street, but to direct them out of our parking lot, left or right on Stevens Street, we can't direct traffic on a public street, but we do get them off of Stevens Street so that, the traffic can flow while the cars are on our property. When they start to leave, they're on their own as of now.
Now, do you, at either building actually, when you're doing this, coordinate at all with the city's traffic control officer that's at the Parker and Stevens intersection, or is she doing her thing and you're doing yours?
Well, when we exit on the elementary side, they leave on the Parker Street and they do split. It's one way. That entrance is one way, right, left. And we have talked with the crossing guard, and she has assisted. We have some walkers that go across there. The other schools come in from there, but she does assist us with getting the cars moving out of the parking lot. And again, they're leaving all in a small amount of time. Dismissal in the elementary school is at 15:15, and at 2:30, 2:35, there are no cars in the parking lot except for the teachers. So it's a very small amount of time in which this traffic is.
Right, it's a crisis event. It's not the same thing as, the day-to-day, hour-to-hour traffic management.
And as it was alluded to earlier, it's at 2:15. It's not at 5:30 when you have all of the industries and cross points and all that, coming out. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking that some sort of active management plan is going to have to come into effect here to handle this traffic coming out of all of these different entrances, and there should be what that plan is, and the coordination with the city traffic management staff is something that I think should make its way into our decision. Which brings me to my next question. How do your drop-off and exit times correlate with the Washington School?
I'm really not sure. I don't know what their schedule is. I'm not sure at all.
Okay.
No. Yeah, so if the Washington School gets out at 3:10,
Okay.
we're long before them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so, but that isn't an overlap. That's good.
Yeah. And there's city buses. I mean, it is a busy street, but like I said, it's an extremely small window of that we're generating traffic.
Yep. Okay, and am I missing something on your interior pedestrian plan? I do not see any crosswalks painted or anything for pedestrians that are coming in off of Galligan and approaching the school from that direction as opposed to coming from Stevens. Are there some? Are there any?
Can you repeat the question? I don't think I quite got it.
I can see your interior walkway plan here, and you've got a lot around the buildings and a lot up on the Stevens Street side. Are you planning on having any crosswalks or walkways or anything to provide pedestrian access from your entrances on the Wilder Street side, if pedestrians approach or exit from the rear as opposed to the front?
We do have crosswalks across the two proposed egresses.
Right.
We did add another one across Wilder Street, but as of right now, the plan doesn't call for any of the crosswalks along Galligan.
Right. I'm talking about Wilder Street, sorry.
Okay, I apologize. Okay.
Okay, but it looks to me there's no pedestrian walkway that goes from Wilder Street to your building and to your existing walkways. So that might be something to look into. Okay, those are my questions, Mr. Chairman.
And to respond to that, it's actually a very good question, and there is a sidewalk around the building, and we could add a crosswalk to the sidewalk, if that's how I understood your question.
Yes, that is.
Okay, good, that's, yeah.
That would take a little thought about which one or both and which side they need to be on and everything. We need to show some thought about that, not me with a magic marker at the planning board meeting.
No, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. Any questions, Richard? Okay. Mr. Lockhart, if you don't mind.
I have a number of questions, but I'll ask a couple here to, we all know the importance of sidewalks in this area. On the sidewalk analysis, the title of which is the sidewalk analysis prepared the Lowell Catholic High School, down at the bottom of the first page, it states the existing sidewalks on the major collector streets in the study area are in good condition. And yet on the next page, it talks about, the second sentence down, although some of the sidewalks do not meet current standards. There seems to be a disparity there in the wordings, but can you expand on that, Jerry?
Yeah, the study area put in place under that zoning bylaw, actually, to take a look at the sidewalks within 1,000 feet of the school property. If you look at some of those sidewalks, some of them were constructed by the WPA.
Yeah.
And they're very nice. Like if you look at Laura, Rodora, those streets there that are within 1,000 feet, the method of construction at the time was to have a curb, a grass strip, and then like a 3-foot concrete sidewalk, and then the front of the residence along there. So even though they're sidewalks that are still in good shape, a lot of them, they don't meet the current standard for a sidewalk. But I mean, you can find that condition all over the city of Lowell.
Yeah, I mean, it does go on to say, although they are all passable by wheelchair.
Right.
All right, that explains my concern. My other question relates to trash, and there is a dumpster area. If you could point that out and explain to us how the dumpster is enclosed and what you're doing to lessen the impact on the neighborhood in terms of visibility and,
If I may approach the board, I think it'd
Sure.
be the easiest way
yes,
to...
please, yeah. Just explain what you're doing with that. Sure.
Could you just grab that microphone and make sure the blue light's on so we'll pick up your talking? Thank you, sir. Does that one come up?
That work?
Yeah, as long as you have that little blue light on top. Yep, that's it.
Yep.
Thank you.
So the proposed dumpster area is located here, kind of right near the doorway to the kitchen, in the ancillary space there. It will be enclosed by a solid vinyl fence. The reason really for the two means of egress onto Stevens Street was to try to minimize some of the conflicted movements with the dumpster truck that's going to come. They'd be able to come in, back up just a short way, or be able to come in here and pull up forward, trying to minimize those backup alarms that are required by OSHA and whatnot. But that area is right there, and it will be fenced and screened to everyone.
All right, so the neighbors there are looking at a vinyl fence?
Correct. Not just a vinyl fence for the dumpster enclosure itself, but the plan includes an earthen berm with some landscaping trees, and there's an existing fence that's currently there now that kind of separates it's along the property line. So they'd be looking at some fairly heavy screening through there, not just the vinyl fence for the dumpster enclosure.
All right, now there'd be other, maybe landscaping in there too?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
good. That's all I have right now, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Snetsky, any questions, comments?
Yes, I do. I know that the sidewalk ordinance covers the requirements of the sidewalks, and that'll have to be satisfied with the city engineer, the traffic engineer, so I won't spend any time discussing that. However, in the traffic comments from Nick Bossinetto, I was interested in two things, and one, and I think some of them were in the sidewalk plan and some of them were in his traffic comments. But one is the restriction of parking on I believe it's the north side of Galligan Road. And I think working with the city to accomplish that would be, beneficial. Also, on one side of Wilder Street, behind the property, I believe there should be a restriction on parking there. And I know you'd have to work with the city to accomplish that, but I think those two are important. I was at the site as recently as this morning, and I think that the school will need to be extremely proactive in keeping students from parking, particularly if on those areas, if they're restricted, and as well as in other parts of the neighborhood. I mean, it's not uncommon for, for high schools to issue parking permits to students, and when they're gone, they're gone. And, the students then cannot, bring a car to school, and I think, it's critical to the neighbors that the school be extremely proactive in making sure that the students do not encroach on the neighborhood with parking. And I think, that's certainly something that's within your purview to do, and it's not unusual, in a high school situation. And also the restriction of Galligan Road to the one-way during school hours, coming from Wilder to Stevens, which is in the comments of the traffic engineer, I think would be an appropriate condition, and I think it would help the traffic flow in the neighborhood as well. So those are my main concerns. In addition, among the comments we received tonight from the city engineer, have you folks seen those comments?
Just like the board, we received those at the last minute too, but we did review those. Our engineer did, and he can speak to those.
I mean, I know you just saw them as well, and, none of us have had a lot of time to digest them, but do you have any thoughts on what you're seeing, at least as an initial reaction?
And I'll take my best shot at it. My apology will be that since we got them so late, I haven't had a chance to talk to the engineering department. So the first comment that was made was that we had stated that we're not handling the stormwater on the site, and I strongly disagree. We're putting in a very large detention system, again, a pipe detention system. It's different from a recharge system in which, and again, I hate to gloss it over or bore you guys, but a recharge system would be the type of system with an open bottom or slats in the side, so as we collect the stormwater, we recharge it back into the groundwater. This type of system is a detention system. It's made of, solid walled pipe where we collect the water and we send it out through a small outlet. We keep that pipe storage acts as a detention basin. The only spot on this site that we're able to do that is over that ash dump. And we're precluded by DEP to recharge any of that water back into the ground. And so the first question, or the first statement that I would, when I talk to the engineering department, is to make sure that they knew what we were proposing. It seemed to me that there may be a bit of confusion there. The second part of that was on, she lists 2 standards. In Massachusetts, DEP, there's 10 stormwater standards. And typically a design like this, we write a report, which we did include in our material, on how we meet all 10 of those standards. The one standard that she comments about is standard number 3, and it's on recharge. You've got to take a certain amount of the water that's collected from impervious surfaces such as roof and such as pavement and recharge it back into the ground. When the gymnasium was built, and I believe it was when the gymnasium was built, the Academy incorporated 2 of these underground recharge areas into their current system. So they have those currently working now. We have the opportunity to expand on one of them, right up to maybe the limits of where that fly ash was documented back when they were capping it, in which we will go over with the engineering department to take care of that standard number 3. And standard number 7 really had to do with the whole redevelopment part of it. So while we just got them at 5:30, and I didn't want to say anything to this board until after I talked to her or talked to the engineering department to just make sure we were on the same page, but I think it's something that we can overcome. And if I may, Mr. Chair, just to expand on just one more point, some of the neighbors brought up especially on the Wilder Ave side, some drainage concerns and whatnot. And incorporated into our design, along that earthen berm, obviously, an earthen berm would be a hill, to try to cut down some of the site impacts from the development. We've incorporated a swale, which is the exact opposite. Rather than a hill, it's going to be a little valley in which we carry some of our stormwater on the northerly side into our drainage system. So, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is we've incorporated all the runoff from our property into our drainage system. So I really do think that it's going to be an improvement. The fact that the building, the roof, it's a flat roof building. I mean, there are some architectural amenities to it, but with all intents and purposes, it's what we refer to as a flat roof. There will be roof drains. All the water from the roof will be collected and directed into that drainage system, so that will not run off onto the property. So really what we end up doing is, in a nutshell, is we greatly reduce the amount of area that is currently, sheet flowing water or drainage water onto the abutting properties. We collect it, treat it, and take care of that in our system. So I strongly think that this is going to be an improvement.
I certainly don't profess to be, an engineer or understand all the technical aspects of it, but the fact that, you see what's being questioned and believe that, you have a plan in place or can modify the plan which is in place to satisfy the concerns of the engineer would be fine with me.
Right. And I know I've been at this long enough, I know you guys have too, that we will work with that engineering department, as such as the transportation department, and we will satisfy all their concerns. That's part of that process.
Thank you. That's all I have at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Fischette?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, appreciate the explanation, looking at this at the last minute on the drainage. Because looking at the narrative, it does appear, at least the way it's written, that the overflow was designed to go into the drainage system on Galligan Road. So I suspect that that's what she's referring to. But again, you don't have a choice. You have to satisfy what the city engineer wants on that. So I think that's pretty straightforward at the end of the day. The berms that you're referring to, can you elaborate on that a little bit as far as the height? And I'm just curious how that's going to look. I can appreciate what it's trying to accomplish, but I'm starting to envision what's going to look like a fortress rather than. But again, we've got to try to find some way to screen the effect to the abutting properties. And especially at the pre-application hearing, we discussed quite a bit on Wilder with the new entrances, the properties that are right there. And there's actually some mature trees that are there right now screening that property, and what is going to happen to those mature trees. And so if you can kind of go around the perimeter of all of that.
If I may approach it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So along the northerly side of Galligan, which again is this strip here, in which some of those mature trees and whatnot were talked about, the berm is trying to serve a kind of a dual purpose. Number one, provide a green screen for an aesthetic purpose, or an aesthetic value to some of the abutters. But we also designed it at about 3.5 feet high to eliminate any of the headlight glare during some of the dusk hours when school is going to be being utilized, as the cars are pulling in and pulling out of these spaces here, to try to eliminate any of that spillover from any headlight glare that gets into there. The northerly property boundary over here, we certainly can't build something tall enough to screen the building. I mean, if the building is 35 feet high. But again, what we've done is we've built a berm. Again, we're shooting for that 3.5 foot high, putting some green screen, some shrubbery and whatnot on top of that. Again, just to provide an aesthetic green screen for the abutters on Wilder Ave. There's an existing fence there, and we're just going to try to enhance that screen there.
Will that, and excuse me, will that fence, so will that berm be up against the fence? How is that, and is that going to be a gradual slope to keep
But it's
that so
gonna-
it doesn't wash away and,
If you will, I'll kind of take you on a tour from the property line back into
Sure.
the interior of our property. The first part of it will be a bit of a swale. Again, that's for drainage purposes, that any of the water that collects on this side will be directed down into our drainage system.
so the swale will be on the inside of the berm?
Correct. If we did it opposite, if we put the berm right up against the property line, then it would shed some water back onto the backs of the abutters, and that's what we're certainly trying to avoid that.
So the swale will be on the side of the abutters?
Correct.
All right, okay.
And then, as that swale comes up, it'll be a bit of a hill, that mound, the berm, earthen berm, and that's the top of the berm that'll be planted. So again, like I said in my presentation, there is some maintenance to that. It'll be mowed, and kept clean and whatnot, but that's the proposal for that side.
And then and that can be finalized with the planning and development, but the type of shrubbery, what's the height of the growth of what you're proposing to put in there?
I believe for an arborvitae type of screen or an evergreen type of screen, we typically call for 6 to 8 foot high trees to be planted. That's a
At
fairly...
planting and with a maturity height of?
Typically, they grow to 10 to 12 feet. Yeah, but I'm not the landscape architect, but that is typically what you get from nursery stock, that's 6 to 8 foot high. Certainly, if any of them do not take and end up dying off, they'll be replaced. And I should point out that along the Galligan, because you asked the question on the Galligan buffer, from the parking regulations from the zoning code at the city of Lowell, this project owes X amount of trees. I don't know exactly how many, I'd have to look at the plans to do that. But the idea is to kind of enhance with those existing trees, sprinkle those around, and place them such that we fill into that buffer, that already existing buffer with those trees. We're trying to save those trees.
Because, well, so that's where I get into the sidewalk plan. There's an issue there too. I think that's in direct conflict with some of what you're trying to do. And I think as we sit here, we have no idea. I mean, unless if we adopt, well, as the chairman so eloquently explained, and as we understand the ordinance, we have to adopt it. That's the whole idea of doing the assessment and then incorporate it into the site plan. If that's the case, that does change what you're proposing here.
Correct. I mean, we would, if need be, we would incorporate that sidewalk into the design and maybe, reposition some of those trees, reposition some of the greenery. And I believe, and Jerry, throw something at me if I do misspeak, we would like a chance to talk to the powers that be on the sidewalk and either try to convince them that the sidewalk isn't needed. However, if the case is they really think it is, we can work out a time frame such that the economics can work out to the project. And so that's something that we kind of look forward to. And from what we understand, we would have a chance to kind of try to go meet with them and talk to them about that.
And the other concern, and I guess, I know this goes to traffic, I suspect, and again, at the pre-application hearing, it was stressed to reach out to the neighbors, and I think there was a pretty common theme with everybody that spoke here this evening, that there wasn't outreach to the abutters. And I believe in one of the recommendations in some of the letters that we have here, has even asked the question, what effort was made to reach out to the people in Wilder? I'm getting a sense that, at least from the people that are here this evening, that there really wasn't, and my concern is the type of recommendations even put forth by the city's traffic engineer. Those are types of issues that are outside of even the purview of the planning board. And those are issues that have impacts on the daily lives of the neighbors. And although they may be mitigating factors in this proposal, you know, the city council would have to vote on some of those issues. And, you know, it certainly, from also being a resident of the city myself, it certainly from a transparency standpoint would I think would have been helpful to have some idea of some of the issues that are being looked at and the challenges, and even from the recommendation on the city side, I think that would have been helpful as an overall discussion. Again, Counselor, and I don't want to belabor the point, but you know, you mentioned there was some discussions, or just how was, and I know it's difficult, I don't know, there's the required mailing for the site plan review, which it looks like the abutters did receive, and that is the applicants mail those out to the abutters. But I'm just curious as to what efforts were made to really, from our pre-application hearing, where I think we indicated, I think Mr. Mavelich wanted to at least make that point, that, you know, we really did stress to really reach out to the abutters, because there are, I mean, it's a large impact project to the immediate abutters. And I would dare say anybody sitting in this room, if this was being proposed next to their home, and let's face it, when these schools were built, they were small neighborhood schools where I would bet the proponent of the preponderance of the individuals attending there lived in the neighborhood, and now it's virtually a commuter school, a regional high school, and it's having success and it's expanding, but it has an impact on the neighborhood. So I would ask that everybody respect the concerns everybody has relative to that. And so I would just, if you could just give us some idea.
Yeah, so Lowell Catholic's very concerned with the entire neighborhood, and more particularly the direct abutters. And I can have Mary Ellen DeMarco address this specifically, as she did previously at the pre-application hearing, because she is the one who was in charge of that. So if I could ask
sure.
Mary Ellen to step up.
Good evening. As far as neighborhood outreach, the school has tried over the past to do.
I'm sorry, from the pre-application hearing to now, what?
From May 1st to now, there's just been, there was a meeting from the Highlands neighborhood that they actually met on the Lowell Catholic property. So they had their neighborhood meeting where we were going to address that if it was deemed so. And they had a full agenda, and we had already spoken to them in the April meeting prior to us returning. So there really was no opportunity since then to kind of reach out again with our specific proposals.
Okay. I gathered that from the discussion here this evening.
And I'm sorry that I missed the beginning of the meeting. Our 8th grade had their first graduation, so I was at the graduation ceremony and just came from there. I know that in the past, what we've tried to do, and one of the things that we had done is done open houses, and that was not really, we did a barbecue once, and we did open houses, and very few neighbors, you know, had the opportunity to come. So what we had done the last time is have flyers sent out with our, biannually, we see if we can do some cleanup, and then we also said that we were going to be on the Highland Neighborhood Board, you know, their neighborhood meeting agenda, so that that way we know.
Was that done in this instance?
That was done.
Before the pre-application hearing?
Yes, it was.
That was done before the pre-application hearing? Okay.
So we brought the boards and everything, the pictures of the building, and went through everything that was there. The meeting was at Cross Point, and I thought that was an easier way to get to the neighbors, because sometimes they're not able to come to our open houses.
And that was the Highland Neighborhood Group that was to send notices out to people?
Yes, in
Is that what that
fact,
was? Okay.
in fact, what we had done is for the abutters, we had put it in with our flyers for our community service. Students were able to do that. I think there were about maybe 10 or 12 families that took advantage of our freshmen coming out to clean up their homes, but we put on the bottom of the flyer that we would be at the Highland Neighborhood meeting to talk about the future of Lowell Catholic. So we had hoped that that would generate some interest. Yes, we did. It was a flyer. It wasn't in the mail, because sometimes, you know, we've put them right by the mailboxes, and I know that some received it, because I know we had about 10 to 12 families that took advantage of the cleanup. And no, it was from the campus ministry office did that. They were not mailed. They were put by your mailboxes when the food bank bags were distributed. We thought it would be the quickest way to get right to our neighbors. And so that's what we had done. And I'm hearing some shaking, and we might have missed a section of the place in that, because I do know that.
Okay.
Well, I mean, when the plans are, excuse me, ma'am, when the plans are posted, it tells everybody and they advertise it in the paper, you want to look at the plans, you can come down to City Hall to look at them. Number one, under our guidelines, which I indicated earlier, we don't make them up to city councilors, they don't have to reach out to the neighborhood if they don't want to. Okay? We, as the board, encourage that, okay? And two things about notice. The courts are very clear on notice. They have to send out the abutting notices, which the city department usually does for everybody else. And if you come to the meeting and tell us, I didn't have notice, the Mass Appeals Court says, by showing up and tell us you don't have notice, you have notice. So you can't say you don't have notice if you're at the meeting. We knew about this meeting. That's the only meeting you have to know about under our zoning regulations. They don't have to meet with you ahead of time, is what I'm saying. We encourage it. They can. We've mentioned it to them at the preliminary. They want to reach out, fine. They don't want to, they don't have to. It's not a criteria that we can say, we're not going to approve your site plan because you didn't talk to the neighbors. If we did that, you can go to court, we lose. We know that. I've been a lawyer for 84 years. Been on this board for 33 years. I know that. We encourage it? Absolutely. You know why? Because most of the time they meet the neighbors, half the neighbors' questions are resolved before they come here. And that's what we encourage. Open transparency, so everybody knows what's going on. So that's our goal. We can encourage it, we can ask it, there's nothing more we can do. It's like telling my kids to come home on time. I encourage it and I ask it. They come in on time, it's a different issue. So to argue over that doesn't give us any tools on how to approve or disapprove a project. So so he just asked the question, and I mean, so if you have notice of the meeting, that's all that's required under regulations. So arguing that doesn't help us solve anything. So go ahead, Mr. Fischette.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm disappointed that again, from the pre-application hearing to this hearing here, we had asked for additional outreach. So again, from that perspective, in many cases, it kind of eliminates some of the issues that that would arise at the site plan. From the issues that were listed from Nick's memo, and I don't believe he has a date on this. Council, the recommendation for mitigation, again, those are items, some of those items are outside of the purview of this board, and I guess that's my concern, because some of these affect the abutters, and they'd be in a situation where they're going before the city council. Is it, and I guess, Patrick, from the recommendation from Nick on these items, the items that would require a city council vote, which would make Galligan Road one-way from Wilder Street to Stevens during school hours, was the intention that the applicant then would agree to take that forward to the council? Would there be a neighborhood subcommittee meeting on that? When you start talking about making one-way streets in neighborhoods, that usually starts to take on a little bit more discussion, a broader discussion.
Yeah, I think he was more recommending it for the board to consider his recommendation. If you thought that it would be, if you agreed with that recommendation, you thought it was a good idea, maybe then you would suggest that that was the avenue that the applicant should go through.
Should go through the city council.
Right. I think differing from the sidewalk analysis as the conditions were immediately adopted, these are not, and I think Nicholas is well aware of that, and he's just recommending for you to evaluate them.
Okay. The other memo that we received on the, from the city engineer, I should say email received from the city engineer, would be incorporated into the, into anything we would decide here. And I think she had 3 conditions, which are pretty basic. The concern I have too is the off-street parking, and especially during the school hours. Was there any discussion of doing some sort of a parking analysis in the neighborhood, Patrick, at all, or? Because when I read some of the material, and actually, one of the abutters brought it up, and I hadn't really thought of it in that way. It appeared that the school did have a tool not to issue as many permits to students, but quite frankly, then, so you don't have a permit to park on site, you still drive your car to school and you park on one of the streets. And I was just curious if there was any type of a parking analysis done around that area.
Well, he does mention parking in his own traffic comments, just that section.
Right.
I think other than that,
And it's more of the effects of on-site, what's required, and it's not really an analysis of the side streets around there, which we've done that in the downtown area on larger projects, because it certainly has an impact. Of course, the challenge we have now is it is now June 5th, and I think a parking analysis perhaps would not be extremely valuable. The So again, there hasn't been any discussion with the neighbors on Wilder Street prior to this evening. The second entrance where the dumpster is going to be located, is that going to be restricted as far as use?
All the egresses were designed as two-way, 24 feet wide, but I do believe, and I'm not exactly sure which comment letter it came from, but there was a recommendation that say, northerly egress be gated and not utilized, and I don't think the project team has any issues with that, correct? And so we would welcome that as a condition. So.
That was in Nick's,
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
it's undated, but I know.
Yes.
Struck me.
From his,
Agree, recommendation number 3, I should
Yeah.
say. Was driving on Wilder gated egress.
and those would be the conditions that we would have control over in this process, where this is,
Before of the-
the, and then, Nick mentions the removal of maple at northeastern corner of Galligan and Stevens.
And again, I believe, I don't have it right in front of me, I believe the condition said to do a sightline analysis.
Right.
We would certainly
Rather
do that.
sightline,
We can provide that as a condition, and if, the maple needs to either be trimmed or removed, then we would certainly be akin to do that, so.
And the letter we had, well, the memo from Patrick is if the fire department has said approved with conditions, 20-foot wide fire department access will be required on all sides, paved areas, as well as vertical height clearance of 13.5 feet if the area in front of the proposed building cannot meet 30-foot access with parking and fire lane may be required. In reviewing that, it looked like you met all those, or was it?
Yeah, around the, let's say the south and the easterly part of it, we meet that. The condition, or the proposal is such that we have two rows of parking, say, in the front of the building. And so we have our sidewalk, our green strip and our sidewalk, then we have our 18-foot wide, or 18-foot-long parking space, and we have a 24-foot aisle. And I believe the condition reads that we would just have to provide some additional striping and call that a fire lane. I mean, it's between the parking spaces, there's really no parking allowed there, but we would not have an issue.
Make sure that nobody parks there, right?
Without a doubt,
Right,
you know,
right.
striping that and painting that as a fire lane. Yep. But the other paved sides of the building, we actually meet that there is no parking up adjacent to the building, and we have the 20-foot minimum.
And then, now, just a question, because you're actually taking basically I guess it's a practice field that's there right now. Where is that activity going to be shifted to?
Currently, right now, it's a minimally used field. We lease from local towns, the rec department at Chelmsford, Gage Field in Lowell. All of our athletics are leased through the other towns and whatnot. There's very little that goes on in that field. So, yeah, it's all
So
offsite.
so it's not space that you need to recreate anyway, okay. All right.
There are kids that hang out at the campus after school. There are some sports, some small football drills and things of that nature, but it's not a full organized practices.
So from your perspective, once that goes away, matter of fact, the kids won't be hanging around there.
Once it's a parking
because
lot, they're gone.
It's officially,
Yep.
okay. So from that perspective, it may be a positive thing as far as, yeah, no.
Yeah, that's good. Great sports.
I still can't help but think if the sidewalk plan goes into effect, that you'd have to come back here for site plan, because I think there's gonna have to be some changes some fairly significant changes to the site plan, but, I think that's, we'd have to have that open-ended in some way.
Yeah.
That is-
Or not have it be open-ended, and if they want to change it, they have to come back,
They have to
because
come back, right?
building it that way would be, they wouldn't be in compliance with their permit.
Right, right. Okay, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have at the moment, thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. I think we had a lot of discussion here. So I'm just going to start off with the transportation engineer. He listed several things, and then at the bottom, he had 6 recommendations. So on those recommendations, are there any questions or problems with those recommendations to start with? Is there anything that you can live with, you can't live with? I know Mr. Fischette brought up if it's a one-way street on Wilder and Stevens, obviously that's something the city council would do, but the rest of it, I'm just curious on the other 6, what your feelings are on those matters. I mean, basically provide screening on the north side of Galligan Road, that shouldn't be a problem, right?
Correct, and I think,
Okay.
Brian, was that mentioned in your presentation as well, that screening?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
As far as Galligan Road being converted to one-way during school arrival and dismissal periods, that is something that I've seen incorporated in many other locations. I do recognize a benefit to allow vehicles to exit by forming 2 lanes, as you had mentioned. There are 2 lanes that exit from the existing driveway onto Stevens Street right now, so it would operate in a much similar manner to that. So I do see a potential benefit there.
And then
Keeping
on
the
third-
northern driveway gated on Wilder Street.
Yeah. Gate it's needed. I know they talked about the recycling being picked up there, but obviously that could be gated and then only being open for, for the service truck to come in and pick up the recycling and whatever other waste they have. So is that something that?
Correct.
Okay.
And
I mean, if it was
I
gated,
believe
it could be
it
open
was
up.
our intention to have that be primarily used for
Okay.
deliveries in the garbage trucks. So I don't see that being an issue.
Make Galligan Street driveway exit onto Stevens Street driveway is entrance only. Is that okay?
I see that as being okay, yeah. So that we would just have vehicles entering from Stevens Street and then from Wilder Street.
And then we talked about removing the maple tree if need be, as indicated in the top part of that. And then encourage the high school to try to encourage more walking, biking, and busing to school to cut down on the traffic. Okay. So basically, the traffic engineer conditions in itself not too outrageous, something you can live with. Okay. So the main concern that I come down with is, we get this letter by the city engineer at, 6 o'clock, whatever time I read it when I got in the room, is that the city no longer allows private entities to connect to the municipal drainage system. First part we get is the plan. The plan is to send it to the municipal system, which is unacceptable. So obviously, we get a letter from the engineer saying that this plan's unacceptable. So basically, I know to sell your case, you have to sell to the engineer, not to us.
Correct.
So obviously, in my opinion, you need time to speak to the engineer. Correct. Also, as indicated when we started off, so that's a concern, but hopefully that can be corrected one way or another, or after discussion, reasonable minds agree. The next one is the sidewalk improvement plan, which we have no control of. I mean, we can improve it, put the conditions on here. If you can't meet the conditions, the project fails. Right?
Again, I believe it's our understanding that we have a chance to go talk to the powers that be.
Well, we'll get into that part.
Oh, sorry, I apologize.
That's why I'm talking about giving you a chance to speak to the engineer and speak to the powers to be in the sidewalk plan. Because as we approve it now, we'd approve it with this, and if this is something that you can't do, then, like I indicated earlier to the neighbors, we can approve the site plan with condition that's unacceptable to you, and then if you can't do it, then the site plan fails. But I'll list them as the Foley.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I know in the past, with other projects I brought before the board, there's an opportunity to amend the order, to amend the conditions of the approval through a public hearing process without denying the project. So I think that, again, I think there'll probably be some discussion about this sidewalk. The neighbors are hearing about this sidewalk for the first time as well. So I honestly think that once we sit down with the powers to be, they might change their mind on what they think they want there. So we'd like the opportunity, we'd love to get, a conditional approval. And then if something changes with that document that needs to be amended, come back for an amended approval. If that's doable.
Yeah. Only question I know is, I don't know if they create the document and we say you have to satisfy the sidewalk improvement plan is addressed by the engineer in the traffic department and the planning and development. I don't know if we just say you have to approve their plan, you have to approve their plan, whether that's come back from amended or not, I don't know. I wouldn't think it would have to, because you have to meet their plan regardless of what we say. So we don't have to approve your approval of amended plan that they agreed to with you.
Well, it's an important question because, and not to scare anybody, but if that were the case, we would probably withdraw without prejudice until we got that resolved.
Either that, or what I was getting to, or give you the opportunity to speak with them and come back.
Well, either way, I'm just trying to avoid a denial at this point.
I understand that. But I mean, and then, because two things that jump out. One, the city engineer says no, and I don't know how we get around that, with a conditional approval with a denial from the city engineer.
Yeah, and we think that there are a lot of misstatements in that document that could.
So I'm just adding,
It's no fault of
that
ours.
onto this, saying, with what we got from the city engineer, It's not a favorable reply.
Understood.
So if we have to try to satisfy the city engineer, we have a blatant email telling us, deny it. Well, let me take deny it. Let me use her words, excuse me. Unacceptable.
Presently unacceptable.
Tomato, tomato.
Okay, 1 second.
I mean, obviously, any condition would be to satisfy the engineering department. In typical City of Lowell, as well as other municipalities
Yeah, I
that we
get
do a
that.
lot of work in, there's usually a couple of,
Yeah, and so usually we get, as most of your crew here knows, Mr. Gary, Mr. Foley, we get some bullet points from the city engineer, construction time, this and that, breaking the sidewalk open and all that stuff, and meet these certain things. And more times than not, we look at them, not too many things jump out right off the bat that are a concern. Most of them are boilerplate type things, as we call them. Some of them might be an issue or two, and you want to go back and discuss. This one just, so let me ask this question then. So do you plan on connecting to any municipal drainage system?
we do.
Okay.
I mean, there's a current connection there.
And she says you
So-
can't do it.
And our system, I mean, and
She
our
says
system is designed,
they have existing connections because it was allowed decades ago. This is not a grandfather situation.
Right.
They cannot add to the flow they send to our system now. So if you're saying you want to add to that system, and she's saying, no, you can't.
and I'm saying from a peak rate of runoff standpoint, we are below. And I do think we detain enough that we meet those regulations. And again, I apologize, we only got it at 6 o'clock as well as you did.
Same here.
And first thing on my plate is to try to sit down with that. I do think our system is designed to meet not only the intent, but the spirit of the stormwater bylaw for the city. In which case, and again, I don't want to sound like a whining engineer, but it's a case that no site would be developable. Everything would go into the ground, and in this particular case, DEP tells us we can't put it into the ground. What we would end up doing by having that.
The difference is she's saying that in the past, okay, they allowed you to do that. Now the rules have changed, says you can't.
Correct.
So when it came in 10 years ago, that was accessible, it's allowed.
Correct. And so now,
Right.
again, current regulations, current rules, current design practices say we do handle it on site. We detain it on site, we treat it on site. It's got to go in, we can't just hold our hands and wish it to go away. We need to go into that connection where it goes now.
Yeah, and I mean, she said she can't do it, so, I mean,
Mr. Chairman?
yeah.
I guess seems like there's some gray areas here, and I have a question, actually.
Sure.
One would be to, I guess the alternatives we have is one, approve with the conditions, and it seems like there's some questions about what those conditions would ultimately be. One is, Mr. Foley mentioned, as a last resort, withdrawing without prejudice. Or number 3, would it make sense to continue this so that some of these issues could be resolved with the various city departments and, have them come back to the board? What would be the most expeditious
That's what I was.
solution?
That's what I was getting to, is whether they could satisfy these requirements in the next 2-week period before we meet again. If not, then we can vote either way tonight. So that's why I'm saying if we have contradiction, I mean, like I say, the sidewalk we have no control of, and if the city engineer says they used to be able to do it, but now they positively cannot. And if they say they're gonna put it in there, and she says they can't, then more times than not, we're told by the law department that we have to go along with our engineer.
It would almost seem to me that continuance might be the most advantageous.
And I know the time is of the essence, but I mean, if a denial kind of kills it right now, until we continue it, may answer some of the questions to give us more information as well. And because if we approved with conditions, I honestly don't know what conditions would give you. I mean, first of all, it'd be the sidewalk plan, number 1, and then if we said satisfy the city engineer, number 2, then after that, I would start asking a whole bunch of other questions that I outlined. But because, usually, like I said, the city engineer usually gives us the boiler point, that's very simple. But if you're saying we're going into the municipal drainage system, she says she can't, then that's a site plan with conditions that won't be met.
Yeah, so that would have to be reconciled, and the hope would be to reconcile that the next regularly scheduled meeting, which I believe is
In 2 weeks.
June
2 weeks.
19th.
I mean, I'm just saying, gives you more time to, I mean, 'cause I think, as Mr. Fischett said, what puts us in a different position, and I'm sure, Mr. Gary, you appreciate this, being a former board member to the ZBA, is the sidewalk plan is telling us to do things that we wouldn't do on our site plan.
That's right, and that's a concern I have, and whether.
So, I mean, that's like, you know, so we have issues in part of the site plan, so the sidewalk plan saying, well, we're controlling this and you can't, so what kind of handicap?
And it's a
you
new bylaw, and it's never been before this board before, so I think it needs to get flushed out a little bit. So we're all on the same page with that. I think the other benefit to this is, the neighbors have indicated that there wasn't any notice prior to this. I think they misunderstood, you know, this legal notice and the notice from us, and what we were saying, you know, because we want to make sure that there was nobody intentionally misstated or misrepresented anything, that Mr. Marco and Lowell Catholic did reach out when they thought it was appropriate to do in a method that they thought was appropriate, but there was no intention to be not transparent about this whole thing, and quite the opposite. They've opened up their school for meetings, they've had the neighborhood meetings, they've attended that, they advertised it, so maybe with the brief continuance, it will also give an opportunity to discuss that with them, and, you know, Lowell Catholic wants everybody on board with this, and they don't want anybody, you know, walking out of here saying we lost. It's not a lose situation, it's a win-win, so I think a 2-week continuance would be acceptable to my clients.
Because I think, you know, getting back to what you're saying is, the sidewalk plan is like, you know, indicated, which is like, if, I mean, obviously, if I was an attorney where you are right now, it's like, can I sit down and talk to you about some of these questions you're raising?
I have a lot of questions.
Yeah. It's like, you know, and then again, maybe we could do something else to satisfy the sidewalk plan.
Right.
Okay, because now, you know, if it comes in contrast with ripping down all these tree lights, I mean, all these trees and stuff that, most of the time, planning department tells us to keep them up.
It's a no-no.
Right, and I think, I'm not gonna, I
You
don't
know,
mean to be
I'm not pointing at Pat
presumptuous.
because he's the only one here planning, but,
Right.
I mean,
I don't mean to be presumptuous, but I think if the neighbors saw what would go there as opposed to what's there now, they might actually.
I mean, for example, the
prefer the
neighbors might not
canopy.
even, well, I mean, the parking on one side or making it a one-way street, they might not be happy with that, but as indicated, a lot of them do it just during school time. You
Right.
know, you don't do it for the whole day, you do it for an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon.
Right.
You know, so
And the other practical thing is that I believe the author or the city engineer who wrote that report is now leaving that position. So it's just we're gonna have to talk to somebody else who's in there. So that's my understanding, that she's close to being completely finished. So they would, our engineer, Brian, would have to speak to somebody there and figure out who that is at a very
So, I
short
mean,
period of
so
time.
say if we say you gotta meet the condition by this engineer, and this engineer is gone, she says no, then what do you do?
Then we have a problem, right? So, so a few things have to be worked out, and again, you know, that was, at 5 o'clock, when I didn't have any correspondence from the city engineer, I was,
You, the previous board member, knew something was up.
well, yeah, I knew something, I mean, we used to get them late, but never, you know, 5:30. I mean, there's not enough time to deal with it, so it begs the question of why would you get something at 5:30, at least to me, on a practical sense? Why send
understand
something at 5:30? Why send it at all at that point?
Yeah, I hear you, I mean,
It's frustrating.
It
to
is.
my clients, too, because they
um,
spent a great deal of money and a great deal of time on this, and,
I understand that.
you know.
And I think you know how it handicaps us as well.
Mhm.
I mean, I know you've been sitting in these seats before, so.
Well, Mr. Chairman, hold on a minute here. Hold on a minute here, as we're talking about, and I had wanted to bring this up, the timeframes being used here and things coming in at the last minute and things being rushed to get done in terms of the meeting. I wouldn't like this to be presented and be discussed entirely as a city-side problem, because it's happening on both sides with applicants hustling to get materials in just in time for the meeting, not adequate time for staff or for us to review it, and then staff hustling around to get their response done in time for the meeting. In response to things coming in late from the applicant, and frankly, us being willing to talk about things at a meeting when they appeared 3 days, 2 days, 4 days before that meeting. And I'm tired of doing business this way. And it's not merely something that city staff is imposing on poor bereaved applicants. It's also something that applicants are hustling in and getting stuff to us at the last minute. It's an imposition on us, it's an imposition on staff, and we should not be operating this way. And we shouldn't be allowing applicants to operate this way.
Engineer recommendation that I get at 6:15? Ignore it? Or tell staff that's not good enough?
Continue. Give staff 2 weeks, give everybody 2 weeks.
That's what I'm trying to accomplish. And you can give us a blanket approach of people bring things in late, but we take case by case, and I didn't see them bring anything in late. And more times, when the applicant brings something in, it's response from city departments, and they don't get the city departments until hopefully before 6 o'clock.
Right, it's the applicant's benefit to get everything in right away, and I think.
I mean, the more times than not, we get it, and then other things that they've given to us at the last minute, we don't accept. But on a case like this, if they get something from the engineer that says, no, it doesn't work, and they're saying, well, we have other ways to do it, I mean, and obviously, we've not really had a big issue with the engineering department and stuff like this. We've usually got it mostly forthcoming.
My guess is that's a misunderstanding or miscommunication somewhere on the engineering front that the engineers will figure out.
Right. I mean, I don't know why it's late. They just said, the staff tells us they got them late from them because they had problems with something else, but
But I'm talking about the issue that she's brought up in there. I think that issue is something the engineers will be able to figure out, because it seems like it can't be one or the other and both be right, so.
We know that the engineers can agree quicker than you and I as lawyers can. We know
Never agree.
We know that.
If we don't agree,
The engineers can sit down and say, you're right, and you're like, I still don't agree with you, Mr. Gary, So the engineers usually get to a concrete answer, is what I'm getting at. Where the lawyer's like, well, I just stick to my side, right?
So I think a continuance to the 12th would be reasonable. I think it puts a lot of pressure on my client, but they're willing to do that time-wise, I believe, right?
I just think hopefully it answers some more questions, but like I say, that sidewalk problem, situation plan could interfere with a lot of our site plan regulations.
Okay. And I'd just like to state for the record, too, for the benefit of the neighbors who, we all live in the city of Lowell, at least I do, and I care about what goes on here, too, but my clients are willing at any stage from now until the next meeting to meet with any or every one of you and address these issues, as they were before this. So I apologize that there was a gap between the pre-application and now, but I think that was a misunderstanding as to what we were supposed to do. I think, at least my interpretation at the last meeting was, we expressed to this board that we did meet with them, that we did all that, and I think maybe we didn't hear right that you wanted us to do it again in between, and that might have been my mistake, so I apologize for that.
So,
Before we move on to doing a continuance, there was one other substantive issue I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
The berm on the north side between your new building and the abutters on Wilder Ave.
Wilder, yep.
The berm and the planting. There is currently a rather substantial buffer of mature trees with a screening undergrowth that runs along that length. Will those trees be staying under this plan?
I believe they will be.
You'll be able to maintain those trees?
Most of the trees are to the property line edge, at least the trunks of them are. And like I explained to you, kind of that cross-section with the swale and the berm being a little closer to our building, I believe we can achieve it without having to cut any of the trees down.
Okay.
And
You're saying most of those trees are on the abutters property? Their trunks are on the abutters property?
When the surveyor went out to do the existing conditions plan, they usually locate a tree line. And that's what shows on the plan. And typically it's the drip edge or it's the tree line. We didn't do that. I'll have to go in and actually go locate some of those trees and verify that what I told you is the truth. And we will do that prior to the next hearing.
Okay.
But I do believe we can do that with leaving some of that screening in place.
Okay, I think that, this is the neighborhood I live in. I'm just a few blocks away from there, and that strip of trees, of mature trees and undergrowth is pretty important in terms of the greenery in the neighborhood. It would be a real shame if there was a substantial impact on that. And I think that I'd like to have more than we think we can leave most of them, to look at and decide on. The other
Let me
thing
get
I
that
wanted to,
information for you.
the other thing, Mr. Malovich, you had mentioned that you had pictures of the sheet flow. Okay. Do you have them physically with you tonight?
Yes.
Okay. Could you get those to Mr. Burns before you leave?
Yes, I also have to sign it.
I think those would be very useful for the city engineer, and also if they could, if we could take a look at them. It sounded like what you said is a lot of that flow is coming from the St. Margaret's, the former St. Margaret's parking lot.
It's a combination of both.
Uh-huh.
Because it comes down the hill
Yep.
from the old St. Margaret's School.
Yep.
Down the hill, whatever you used to sled down as kids.
Yep.
And then also from the roof of the gymnasium, it drains off.
Yes.
Along the side of the building.
Yes.
All it is gravel down there.
Yes.
There's no drainage ditch underneath there, so it runs straight down, because it's all slanted right towards 24 Wilder Avenue property.
Now, were you talking about doing anything about that sheet flow, about this berm possibly turning the corner?
Right, the swale that I talked about goes behind the gymnasium building. But we weren't really doing any improvements or anything onto the elementary school side. But
Okay.
I'd be more than willing if you can give Patrick permission to maybe share those pictures once they get into the record. I'd like to look at them.
Yes, please, yes, please, if that's possible. And just as a final comment, in terms of your subsurface system and how it's constrained by your soils, and you not necessarily having the area to expand it, I'd just like to remind everybody that you also have the St. Margaret's parking lot and the yard behind the St. Margaret's parking lot available. That's my final comment, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just stress one thing, is for the next meeting, if the applicant could really prepare some sort of a drawing for us, a rendering of what that berm will look like, especially on that northern side. That would be helpful. And incorporating, if you can do an analysis of those trees. I was just looking at, so I took pictures of that, because again, we were looking at that, such a crucial spot, because that building is going to be right on top of that property. But if you could do an analysis, I have an arborist get out there and just see, what can be saved, what can't, and then incorporate that into the rendering and what you're proposing on top of the berm, I think would be really helpful. I think it would be helpful for the abutters as well. With that, Mr. Chairman.
So if I could just address two things, I believe Mr. Foley can address Mr. Malovich's comments that he made, and also, just before I forget, Mary Ellen DeMarco is here for the neighbors, and if they're gonna be walking out when she is, she'd like to set something up, just so you know that she's reaching out, and she'll set it up and meet with them whenever she can, as well as any other neighbors that they'd like to bring who may not have been able to be here tonight. So thank you, Mr. Foley.
Thank you. I'll be brief, Mr. Chairman. In response, in a previous life, I was Vice President of Belanger and Foley Incorporated, and we were the architects and engineers for the McNamara building and the gymnasium. Obviously, that never would have passed through site plan approval had it not been done correctly. Number two, we never got an occupancy had it not been constructed the way it was designed to be constructed. But for clarification, the gymnasium roof, the right side of the roof, which is facing the parking lot, that all drains down. It goes into an underground infiltration system before it gets issued off the site, and it goes through all kinds of cleaning apparatus. The left side of that roof goes down, it gets collected underground by pipe, which gets directed towards Stevens Street. There's an infiltration system, another infiltration system between McNamara and Stevens Street. From there, it exits out to the system that's in the larger part of the parking lot. The flat roof has roof scuppers in it, which collects the drainage, and that all gets directed down into the infiltration system as well. So if there's water coming off the building causing sheet flow, I'm not denying that there's sheet flow there. I'm just questioning the cause of it. So I'll be, we'll take a look at that. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chair, since I brought up, I'll make the motion that we continue the meeting to our next scheduled meeting, which is June 19th.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, one thing, just so the neighbors know, when we continue the meeting, when we come back, we don't start all over again. Everything that's been stated by all the neighbors is already on the record. So basically, when people come back, what I usually ask is if anybody has anything new to say, they will pick it up and go forward from there instead of starting at the very beginning. So it's like, basically, we're in the middle of the hearing. We're going to pick it up where we left off tonight with the questions we asked, and I'll entertain people to speak. Obviously, I usually ask if any new information that want to be provided, or any people who were not here last time, if they want to be heard. So therefore, we pick it up as a continuation. We don't start all over again. So obviously, the main concern we had is we need some concerns that were raised by the sidewalk committee as well as the city engineer. So hopefully, some of those questions can be answered, and hopefully, some of your questions can be answered in the interim as well. So I'll make the motion that we continue this for a 2-week period, which is our next scheduled meeting. Because I know time is of the essence, and we'll try to get it in as fast as we can. So I'll make the motion we continue to June 19th.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hearing any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries. Good luck and thank you all.
Thank you for your time,
very
gentlemen.
much. Thank you. Sure. Help yourself, sir.
Yeah, that's, jeez.
Ma'am? Ma'am? You want one, please?
There.
Thanks. Yeah, just an extra copy, okay? You're always entitled. Gone. Sometimes it's easier to ask questions when you have something in front of you, you know?
Yeah, it usually is.
Hey, Bill, how you doing?
I got a real big set. That's about the size of this table.
Yeah, right there.
You couldn't work on that one.
I understand. I do that.
No, I think there's plenty of documents there.
But we'll make sure something is done
Yeah, I
right
just want to
there.
make sure that that's taken care of, so. That's it.
Any of the neighbors need another set of copies of those plans? We have another set up here. Anybody else need one?
Well, they go over Highlands Association or whatever. That's like 5 people. And Highlands Highway, and, you know, it's really, you gotta, encompass it.
I tried to give them the heads up to talk to people and that's what, you know, everybody know what else is, you know, they're not all based.
No, of course not. No, of course, based on whatever they're gonna do, but, you know, they're doing their job, they're doing it based on the license plate. Some do, yes, in Wilder Ave. I don't live there, my mother does.
Oh, okay.
Speaking.
I see, yeah.
But yeah, they do it on occasion. You know, the people that are gonna have a big issue are gonna be, I don't know if you know the people in the neighborhood with the Gavro family right across the street on the corner of Better Road.
Yeah.
And, big blue house right there, because they can't get out of their driveway, because kids park right outside the gate. And now they're gonna have to dump odor and the smell from that in the summertime, warmer weather, and so I'm glad you kept asking the questions about the trees on the tree line, because that's what killed it ruined our yard, because along the back.
Can I just have the people step outside, please? We have some other business to enjoy. Thank you very much.
And everything else, cut them all down, and then they put those pine trees in little green shrubs.
Yes, I
I'm
don't
sorry,
want that
we
to
gotta
happen
continue
again.
the
We
meeting.
do.
So, anyway, thank you.
Good job, Billy.
Moving along on the agenda, we have further comments from planning board members. Any of the board members have any updates as a result of the boards that they're presently sitting on?
Historic Board will meet in 1 week on June 12th.
Do you have anything on the agenda you know already, or?
Yeah, the UMass Lowell wants to put the Toxic Use Reduction Institute on the top floor boot mill over there. We had a site visit to look at the height of the stacks, and it looks pretty good. The developer did a lot of creative work to get that in there.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just quick comment on the lack of progress with the Rourke Bridge.
Oh, jeez.
And I know.
It's time for that, isn't it?
And I know I was optimistic serving on the advisory committee, I think it was 5 years ago now. No, it hasn't. It seems that long. But the concern is that the data that was generated at that time and the money that was spent, is getting to the point where maybe stale, and you have to start back at square one. So I know NEMCOG has been keeping the membership abreast. The city has been involved, the city administration, and dealing with, trying to deal with the Secretary of Transportation, and I know there's been a couple meetings that have been canceled, but as soon as we hear anything, I will certainly let you know, because at the last NEMCOG meeting, I made it known that I did say publicly at one of these meetings that I thought within 10 years, we would see a bridge under construction. So I may be wrong on that, Mr. Chairman, but we'll keep a post on that. I know the city is diligently working, and you know, the reality of it is, and the state makes it very clear that there are other priorities across the state. And although we feel that it is an issue here, you know, when they're looking at the statewide bridges that are in need of repair, as much as we hear the rattling of the panels, that is still a very sound bridge from an engineering perspective. So, anyways, again, some frustration on this end as far as getting some movement at the state level.
Thank you. Any board members have anything further? Patrick, anything from staff? Now, I know next meeting we have that other thing coming on Merrimack Street, which was that dorm thing, which is...
Yes, and I have actually the applications, the site plans for those as well. Hand out.
Will there be anything else on that next meeting so far that we know besides now that I put this on, or we
Right,
put this on?
I think
should
it's
say?
just those two.
Blame me.
I think it's just those two things,
Okay.
if I remember correctly.
All right.
Property, is that coming before us?
Yes, I think it, yeah, you're right. So, I'm sorry, yeah, there's another parking lot by, off the Lowell connector, 44 YMCA Drive.
Oh, okay.
Is it
Oh,
proposed?
yeah.
Oh, is that
You
what
did send
that
us some
is?
comments on that,
Yeah,
that's right.
there's a
Okay.
proposed parking lot.
Oh,
That
that's,
was the land swap.
Oh, yeah, okay.
yeah, the bus, yeah, okay.
So that's on too?
That's what that is.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
okay,
Got something on that already.
okay, thank you. So nothing further comments from any of the board members or staff, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Motion's made and second by Mr. Boyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. We are adjourned. Good luck and thank you, everyone.